Yeah, um, welcome everybody. My name is Itamar Medeiros. I'm a strategist and a UX designer originally from Brazil, but I'm currently living in Germany. And today I just want to do this real quick presentation on how to deal with uncertainty and ambiguity, right? So what we're gonna cover is three things, right? So we need to help the teams understand that uncertainty, like this anxiety that comes with uncertainty is just part of life, right? We are wired actually by nature to feel uncomfortable with uncertainty. That said, we also need to learn how to deal with it because if basically innovation transformation doesn't really happen in your comfort zone, right? So we need to be able to get better at it, right? The second part of this quick pitch is the idea that while uncertainty may be natural, ambiguity is human-made, right? So whenever we can, we as leaders and strategists, we need to step up to the plate and remove uncertainty by or at least remove ambiguity by creating clarity. And finally, I'm going to show a couple of techniques on how to facilitate the discussions that help teams build clarity, remove ambiguity, and deal with uncertainty. Right. So as I mentioned at the beginning of this quick presentation, we are wired by evolution to dislike uncertainty. Right. It almost feels like pain. And this natural instinct of survival is awesome, but it really gives this bias towards like certainty. Like we want to be in this place that we are certain of things, right? And that means like we are in this natural tendency of prefer to knowing things over not knowing things, right? But in the kind of environment that we are, this is not really possible, right? So while uncertainty is natural, right? We just have to be able to deal with it, right? So what we need to know, what we need to do is to help teams understand that this anxiety that they are experiencing is natural, right? They are not less competent by it. What we need to know, what we need to, like we individually, but also our teams, is like we need to, in the face of that uncertainty, ambiguity, we need to just embrace it, right? We are not less competent or weak behind it, right? And one way to embrace it is actually acknowledge that whatever emotions we're feeling at that point, we are not our emotions, right? So this is where we need to help the teams. There's an aspect of mindfulness and emotional resilience that we need to help our teams create, right? So, and the way to deal with this is embrace ambiguity, right? So there's a degree of adapting to it, and there's a degree of acting on it, right? In one extreme, you don't want to just be a bag in the wind where, let's say, everything happens and you just say, that's life, man. You don't want to be in that end of the spectrum. But on the other hand, you do not want to be this control freak that like every minimal risk, you want to mitigate it and eliminate it as much as possible, right? So you want to navigate that thin line of where you embracing ambiguity, and ambiguity becomes part of the creative process, right? And then here's the aspect of like that we probably in this process we need to be very clear, right? There's a degree of ambiguity that we can remove, but there's something that we cannot control, right? Like we need to be aware of, like what are the things that we cannot control and deal with them, right? So as a leader, we cannot provide certainty, not because you're not a good leader, but it's just as a lot of the stuff that creates uncertainty is around the future, right? And you cannot control the future, right? So that means whenever possible, we need to acknowledge what are the things that are in control and what are the things that are not in our control, right? That said, ambiguity is human-made, right? So this idea of this absence of clarity, whenever possible, we need to create clarity, right? So and let's face it, like this state of ambiguity is almost like automatic, right? Because there's a short-term benefit to being like to not spend time creating clarity, right? So when a manager posts a vague job description, it just saves us time to not have to define everything, right? Or when a project manager launches a project and then say things like, well, we'll figure out the details as we go along. There's a short-term benefit of not being clear, but there's a long-term like risk of we creating like ambiguity, right? So ambiguity tends to put people on the reactive mode, right? So and probably the part that is going to be very critical for strategy is like the ambiguity prevents organizations to operate from focus, right? So the best thing that you can do is to, let's say, when you don't know the future, it's more important to know what to do than to know what's going to happen, right? So that means like whenever possible, we as leaders need to step up to the plate and facilitate the conversations that help teams move from clarity, like unclarity, ambiguity, and uncertainty to a place where they can use ambiguity and uncertainty to their advantage, right? So in this quick talk, I'm mentioning a few frameworks, and it's almost like it's not so much of a combination of all these frameworks, but the idea is that as a crescendo, right? Let's say in one end of the spectrum, you are completely just enduring an uncertainty, ambiguity, but just dealing with the difficulties of the project. And in the other end of the extreme, you're basically taking ownership of the projects, right? So what you're gonna see in this quick pitch, and if you jump over to the references I'm gonna send, we're gonna show you a series of workshops and techniques that when you combine, you go from just enduring uncertainty, ambiguity to embracing uncertainty, ambiguity. Like it starts with like involving your stakeholders, getting very good at asking questions, using visual thinking to visualize information, help teams uncover assumptions and test hypotheses, being very good at framing and reframing problems, right? And the part on the left, until the framing, this is this kind of stuff that you can do on your own maybe, or working very closely with stakeholders. But as you progress to higher levels of ambiguity, then you need to start involving the team, right? So articulate business value, facilitate good decisions, definitely being able to be very articulate on vision, right? And if everything else fails, basically you step up to the plate and take ownership of the project, right? So yeah, so this is my quick pitch to this idea. You can jump over to the article there if you want to know more details. And I really hope to see you on the next one.